Hello, I'm Todd Grimes, and in this program we're going to take a look at techniques for facial animation in Lightwave. And the first thing you want to have is one of these, a mirror. Because when doing facial animation, you're your own best reference. If you know exactly the facial expression you want for the character, you could just make it and refer to your own face. So let's start by taking a look at the character model. So let's go ahead and load up our actor here. And we're going to be focusing on the head, obviously, because we're doing facial animation. So let's kind of zoom in here. Now what I want to do is I'm going to start doing a lot of hiding and unhiding of things as we go through the process of creating the different facial expressions for the character. What I'm going to do first is let's go ahead and open the statistics panel. Let's start by, let's remove his skelegons there. Just select those and I'll hit minus to hide them. And I'm going to go ahead and select his head geometry there and hit plus to hide the unselected. So right now we're just sort of looking at his head here. And there's three main regions we're going to focus on here, which is his mouth area and the eyes as well as the brows. And we're going to group the morph targets into these three sections so they can be animated independently from one another. So while we were modeling the character, we had created a part for the front of the face here, which pretty much selects everything that we labeled as the front of the face. I'm going to go ahead and assign a couple other selection sets to help us out with creating some of these morph targets. One of the other things we did when modeling the character was also change some of the colors of the sketches for the wireframes to be able to select different items as well. And we had assigned blue to his bottom lip there, and I believe it was red to his top lip. I'm going to go ahead and make a couple other selections that I'm going to use for manipulating around here. So I close this window here. And I'm going to select his bottom teeth. Okay. And then I'm just going to select right around his jaw there. Let's turn symmetry on here as well so we can get some selecting in the perspective view here. And I'm just going to kind of select some of this geometry in here, right up around there. Because I'm going to use this basically as kind of like a lower jaw area with which to animate. And I also want to get that bottom lip. So let me get the statistics panel again here and grab blue. Okay, so let's go ahead and head over to the display tab. Under grouping here, I'm going to go to change part name, and let's just call this jaw for now. So I'm going to use this as sort of the main chunk to open and close his mouth here. Okay. So now what I want to do is create a set of endomorphs that are embedded in the object file that I can access in the layout. I'm going to focus on three different areas of the face, the mouth, the eyes, and the brows, and separate them all into different groups so I can animate them independently from one another. So let's take a look at how we go about applying these endomorphs. If you look down in the lower right corner of the interface here, there's three different vertex modes we can be in: weight, texture, or morph. So we want to be in morph mode here. We're going to start applying endomorphs. The first things we're going to start looking at is the mouth, and specifically what we call phonemes. And phonemes are basic mouth shapes that represent the shape your mouth makes when you're saying certain consonants and vowels. So I'm going to go ahead and start right off the bat and make a first phoneme. We come down here to the lower right, and where it says base here, I'm going to click and drag down to new. Now we have a morph here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to type in P for phoneme, and then I'm going to hit a period. That period, what it will do is take all the targets that I create as P period and group them in the layout so they'll be independent from the other groups I make. I'm just going to call this one A, I, because that's generally the shape. It's the shape we're going to make for when you're saying a sound like A or I. Okay, and I'm going to leave it on relative, and just say OK. See, so far nothing's happened. We have to start adjusting the geometry here. So let's go ahead and with our statistics panel, let's go back and grab that jaw part. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the rotate tool. It's Y on the keyboard there. And I put it right around here in the side view to kind of get that jaw-like motion. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of rotate it out a little bit. And you can see, once I deselect these, that it's opened his mouth and it's kind of made some weirdness in the geometry there. What I've done is I started the initial opening of the mouth, and I'm going to create the different shapes. Again, so the best reference would be to look in the mirror and sort of make a big sort of A sound with your mouth and take a look at what's going on. Typically what happens is your mouth kind of opens and almost does sort of an open smile kind of look. And with animation, especially a cartoon character like this one here, we always want to sort of exaggerate that shape and get it, sort of push it to the extreme. Okay. So now let's go ahead and hide some of the geometry that we don't want to see while we focus on the mouth here. Let's grab the face again. And then let's also grab that jaw. And we're going to go ahead and hit plus here, hide unselected. So now in the different views I can see the geometry without being distracted by what's behind. Now you look, we've already made a change to the points down here. So if I come down in the lower right here and scroll back up to base, you see what happens. The geometry is deforming when I go to that target. And as long as you don't move any of the other points, they'll be unaffected by the target. Okay. So let's go ahead and focus on the mouth again. You select the head here, because what I want to do is hit plus again. Just get rid of the teeth and extras for now. And let's look at the front view here. And go ahead and zoom in a little bit. And I just want to look at this particular shape. What I'm going to start with is making a symmetrical shape and sort of form the mouth into the position I want it to be in. And then once I have the target the way I like it, I'm going to sort of turn off symmetry and mess it up a little bit to get a little more asymmetrical. So I can go ahead and hit tab and turn that off. And I'm just going to start dragging points around. It's almost pretty much the same techniques as when you're modeling the characters. Just going to move the points around to manipulate them into the shape that I want. And again, I sort of want a big, goofy, almost open smile kind of look. When I move these points around, I'm sort of destroying the shapes a little bit of the geometry. But what I'm doing is I'm just going to create the basic landscape that I need and go in and add the detail. And usually your lip kind of flattens out at the top a little bit there. And I'm going to pull these corners up here a bit. And right now I'm just focusing in the front view, but all the changes I'm making are affecting all the views. But I'm going to go back and take a look at them in the other viewports as well. Starting to get a little bit of a shape there. You can see I pulled the corners of the mouth up in the front view here, but now what I want to do is also make sure that I edit some of the points in the side view as well, because as the lip comes up, it also we want it to go back in a bit here. Again, let's kind of take a look at the laugh line area here. I want to exaggerate that up a little bit here. Just pull up the cheeks a little bit. Pull that in. And let's go ahead and look in the side view as well. Kind of want to pull it backward a bit. So as it goes up, it also goes in here. And of course, I want to fix all this here. Let's go ahead and let's take the corner of the mouth here. And take a look in the top view. Just go ahead and rotate that back a little bit. I'm also going to move it back there, just a tiny bit. And again, I'm exaggerating these shapes quite a bit, but at the same time I want it to still sort of have its roots in reality so that it still comes across as believable to the viewer. So it's kind of like taking what's really there and pushing it even further. So I'm not overly concerned with exactly what muscles are moving and things like that, but I am sort of trying to make it look at least believable. And let's take the bottom lip here. Just going to pull that down a bit. Okay. And again, another important factor is the upper part of the mouth. Every shape you make with your mouth sort of affects your cheeks and nostril area as well. Usually when you speak or anything, sort of your whole entire face is moving. But since right now we're focusing on the mouth group, we're going to try and stay away from editing any of the points in the eye. You kind of want to save those points for the eye groups of targets. But I am going to go ahead and adjust some of the cheek areas here. And again, take a look in the mirror when you're making this big kind of shape and notice what happens to the corners of your nostril there. You take some of this geometry here, and I'm going to grab the magnet tool. I'm going to mush it up a little bit. And as well, it kind of maybe moves back a little bit in the side view there. Kind of up and in there. And you can also reference the shape change you're making by going back to the base and seeing how it's deforming. I can see right now that I've made some adjustments up here, but I kind of want it to be even more exaggerated. So let's go ahead and keep moving some of these points around here. The top lip I kind of want to move up as well. Again, it's all about sort of exaggeration. The key to animation is change in shape. Well, this is 3D animation. We are sort of still represented on a 2D plane, so to speak, when you view the animation. And basically what it is it's just graphical representations of different shapes. And the key to good animation is the journey between those different shapes to manipulate the face as well as the body and all the parts of the character around. So I want to kind of keep in mind how this is going to look when it's moved. And usually what I'll always sort of do is push it to the point of almost being ridiculous, and then I can always decide when I'm animating how much of that ridiculous shape I want to use, because you can dial them in percentage-wise. Okay. And let me move the nostrils up a bit again here. Pull that up. And I'm going to sharpen up the laugh line a bit. And let's take a look again. Okay. And once we unhide some of the hidden geometry here, we'll see what further tweaking we need to do to the shapes. I like to edit a lot in the perspective window, so I can sort of move the geometry around and have kind of free reign over where I drag the points to. Sort of more of three-dimensional editing rather than sort of the orthographical views we have here. So I'm going to hit backslash. Let's go ahead and unhide. And let's see what's going on there. So we've moved the lips around quite a bit, but then you can see some of that inner mouth geometry there is sort of tweaking through a little bit. So I want to be sure to keep an eye on that and make sure to avoid things like that. You can grab some of those polygons inside there and just kind of move them back. Move them in a little bit here. Anything that sort of looks really weird you kind of want to avoid. Even though we are going for this exaggeration, again, it sort of, has its roots in reality. You want it to come across as believable, even though it's sort of pushed. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and grab that lower lip again. I'm going to pull that down even more tooth going in there. Okay, I'm going to grab the statistics panel again here. And I'm going to go ahead and grab that lower lip, as well as the upper lip there, the red. Okay. Let's grab those as well. And I'm going to use the stretch tool. I'm going to push this even further, see how far I can go. And I'm just going to try and, I can see what's going on with the geometry. Occasionally some of these tweaks sort of end up with unsightly results. But then in the end what I want to do is just push it to the limit and then go in and fine-tune some of the areas that aren't quite looking right. Like here, let's grab his bottom lip and move that up a little bit there. Okay. And let's see, I'm just looking at the shape here. I kind of want that to be a little bit more straight across there. I want to have a little bit of a curve going there, but I kind of want to adjust that shape a little bit, as well as in the bottom lip. And let's go ahead and select the jaw part again, as well as the face. We have all our skelegons as parts in there as well. And let's hit plus. Okay. And let me take a closer look at the upper lip here. And again, it's pretty much kind of just like the modeling phase where I'm just sort of dragging points around, manipulating the shape. And again, I sort of want that top lip to kind of thin out a bit there. So if you look in the mirror there, you'll see usually if you get sort of a big kind of grin going on, you get sort of a pursing and a thinning of the upper lip there. Okay. So now what I want to do is take a look at the tongue in there. Should probably bring that down a bit. Let's go ahead over to the statistics panel again. Let's find that tongue surface. And I'll just select that. And I'm just going to kind of move it down a bit. Again, I'm not really too concerned exactly what happens like behind the tongue and underneath the tongue and things like that, because you can't see that stuff. So just kind of get it something like that there. Now what I'm going to do is just even get a little more crazy with it. Let me go ahead and select the whole head here again. And I'll hit plus to hide everything else. I'm just going to grab a big chunk of the bottom of the jaw here. Try not to get any of the upper teeth. I want to get the tongue in there. I'm going to take this target, and again, I'm just going to kind of see how far I can push it. Pull it, I'm just moving it way down and sort of rotate it in a little bit. Now, of course, that looks pretty weird, but it's pretty much kind of what I want. When I start to animate these shapes, you'll start to notice that sometimes you want to have the extreme, even if it's only for a frame. In fact, in most cases, it's usually only for a fraction of a second that you would see a shape like this, just like 1 or 2 frames at the most. And the rest would be the journey between this shape and the next one. And it looks silly when you're looking at it, but the end result ends up working better for you, especially when you're trying to really punctuate that exaggeration with a cartoon character like this. If you're going for a more photoreal type look or photoreal style animation, just all the principles are pretty much the same. You just want to dial it down a little bit. And right now I'm just kind of moving the points around just to get a shape that I like. Again, I'm not really overly concerned with exactly how the lip would look if it were really tweaked like this. I'm sort of more concerned with what makes a pleasing shape, sort of from a graphical representation standpoint. And it's kind of goofy. Pretty silly looking. And let's go back down here and take a look at our base again. So, okay. It's always better to have too much, because you can always scale it back if you need to. Okay. And that's pretty close to sort of what I want there. So now what I'm going to do is just go ahead and turn symmetry off, because I'm going to go ahead and asymmetry this whole thing, sort of get it give the character a little personality. So let's go ahead, again, statistics panel here. Let's grab the face and the jaw there. And hit plus. And actually I'll go ahead and grab those teeth, hide those. So again, with symmetry off here, just going to tweak the face a little bit. Maybe I'll pull one side of the mouth down a little bit more here than the other. Kind of give it a funky shape there. And maybe I'll take the whole mouth section here and kind of rotate it a little bit. This is just a little subtlety to give it a little bit of imbalance. Now I want to do this with just about every target, but at the same time I don't want to go too far with it, because then you start to see it in the animation as every time this character says A, you know, he sort of lifts up at the right corner of his mouth. But and in some cases that's part of the character's personality. They might sort of talk like that, but in other cases it starts to look noticeable as sort of something that you might say is kind of computery, like automated. So to remedy that, I'm going to go ahead and make all the targets asymmetrical like this. Then I go ahead and make control targets that sort of add a little bit more ability to make the targets asymmetrical and things like that. Let's lift one side up there. Okay, and whenever I do that, see, I sort of made that corner of the mouth come up a little bit. I'm going to focus on that section of the cheek and nose as well. Kind of want that to be a little higher too. Actually, and I'll mush this one down a little bit maybe. Hey. Okay, so there it is, the AI target. Kind of a big smiley grin. What I usually do is go through and make the rest of the shapes for the mouth region. So let's go ahead and take a look at the head with some already done targets on it. Okay, so let's go ahead and load the final model, which already has all the targets on it, and we can take a look at all the different phonemes and mouth expressions that we've made. So let's go ahead, and it's in the actors folder in our Owlman character, and final model, high res, and Owlman active there. You see this one's slightly different. It's already got all the targets on it, so its AI looks a little bit different. Let's go ahead and open up the vertex map window. Let's come over to the modeler drop down here, and under Windows, scroll over to vertex maps. And this panel contains all the maps that you'd find in the character. And under morph here, you can see this particular model has all the morphs already in it. And let's take a look at the phonemes. Here's the A one we just created. So this model contains a dozen or so endomorphs as phonemes that you can use to make the character talk. There's different schools of thought on what phonemes to make and how many to make. Usually I find that the ones we've got here is a good starting point to make all the different shapes. So again, we've got the AI target, like the one we just made here. And then I've got this ah target in there. It's sort of just a kind of an open mouth. Sort of a not so extreme, but just when you kind of want to get that kind of thing. And then we've got the hard consonants, the C, D, G, K ones here. And it's just kind of like I've sort of goofed it up a little bit for the character, just like I did for the AI one. But it's kind of just like this, and you get to kind of like a tweaked upper lip there kind of feel. The mouth slightly open there. And then, of course, this E, like when you say, you know, like anything that has an E in it, kind of like need, that sort of thing. And again, it's kind of hammed up for the character. You can see that's sort of pushed and stretched his face quite a bit there. E. But I really want to get sort of a unique shape there. And then the F and the V. And again, if you look in the mirror, you could sort of compare with these different shapes. It's sort of a cartoony look for the F and the V. It's kind of an old school biting the lower lip kind of thing for the FV. And then you would say, you know, the F, and then followed by a vowel where the lip would kind of come out there. Now, if you look in the mirror too, you probably find that this is an exaggeration. Usually you wouldn't, you know, this is sort of a cartoony way of saying F or V. And got an L shape in there. Just kind of like, again, another sort of exaggeration on the idea of an L. Or I really rolled the tongue behind the teeth there to kind of get that kind of like a roll, kind of the L, and then the tongue comes out there. And then an M, B, and P, kind of the M and B sounds and things like that, and P. And you can see I just kind of parsed the lips, kind of squinched them up a little bit there. And they kind of go up, and the face kind of squishes a little bit up in. And of course the O shape. The O is generally sort of shaped like an O. And again, this is like all the other targets, sort of tuned up. I've put a little crease in the bottom lip there and things like that, and sort of made the bottom lip kind of pouty and puffy looking. And just kind of manipulated the points around to get sort of that shape. You can see also, if you sort of turn the target on and off, you can see the shape change that's gone on in the rest of the face as well. The cheeks kind of sink in, the laugh lines kind of dissipate, and obviously the jaw moves down. And that change sort of give you that O feeling there. And push it further, it's the U target. Again, it's similar to the O, but it's sort of a more jaw-out kind of feel. And again, this is completely hammed up. Sort of really got that lip out there, really small, pursed lips there. But you can see the change that we get there. You really get that kind of ooh kind of feeling. It's also a common target for use with other phonemes like R and things like that, and Q as well. And the S, it's kind of like like what a snake would say, S, like a kind of a smiley grin, but sort of a teeth together, toothy kind of grin. S. It's just kind of, again, sort of that whole cartoony, exaggerated kind of shape. And the sh, and the j. These are kind of similar to the oo, but much less exaggerated. And also kind of similar to the C, D, G, K, but sort of a bit more lips forward kind of feel. You really get that sort of, like he's saying shh, if he were to have his finger in front of his face or something like that. And the TH one there. Again, if you look in the mirror, you kind of see, like, if you exaggerate that, you sort of stick your tongue out a little bit. You sort of get that feeling of a the. And in addition to creating these different phonemes, another section of the mouth grouping is the different expressions that you can make with your mouth that aren't necessarily targeted for phonemes. Just things, different mouth shapes, like a frown. And again, just like the phonemes, all of these targets are pretty much exaggerated. There's quite a big dip there. And I've got sort of a couple others in there. This one called sort of a concentration kind of And of course a smile. And just like I did for the phonemes, I sort of asymmetrical these up a bit. So if you look at the smile, it's a little bit higher on one side, that sort of thing. And a sort of an open smile. The used car salesman smile there. And then kind of that toothy grin kind of thing. More the evil smile there. Then I've got this kind of little, just like a little sneer target here. And I use this mostly sort of as a combination to add a little bit of lip movement to the mouth. And I've also broken it up into left and rights as well. Okay, so usually what I do again is to create all the phonemes and expressions for the mouth and the lower part of the head, including the jaw. And as you can see, again, all the targets are pretty exaggerated, sort of hammed up quite a bit, especially for a character like this. And once I have all those shapes sort of where I want them to be, I'm ready to move on to the other areas of the head. So the next part of the head I want to focus on is the eye region. It's specifically the lids and squints and blinks and things like that. So let's take a look at the model. So again, we're focusing on the head. Let's go ahead and select the head and hide everything else there. And the region we're going to be looking at is pretty much just all around the eyelids and maybe a little bit above there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select some of this geometry here, and I'm going to go ahead and give it a sketch color to allow us to select it easier. So I'm just kind of grab that geometry. That's mostly the points and polygons we're going to be focusing on here, just around the lids. So let's go ahead over to the Detail tab here, and under Polygons, let's change the sketch color. Go ahead and make it purple. So now, if we open up the Statistics panel here, and I grab that purple color sketch there, I have just my eyelids there. So for now, I'm just going to go ahead and hit plus. Got a little extra piece there, that's okay. And I'm going to make a target. Let's go ahead and start with a blink. So again, let's come down to the M here, and where it says base, I'm going to scroll down to new. And I'm going to call this one E for eyes. Group all my eye targets in E, period, and let's call it blink. Okay. So what I want to start with is this region here, the upper lid. And I've got symmetry on, so I'm selecting both. Okay. So what I'm going to do is in the side view here, I'm going to rotate these just a little bit, bring them down a bit here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to deselect these top section of the lid here and rotate a little bit more here, bring it down. I'm going to use the move tool to kind of squinch it down a bit there. And you notice the shape of the lash is sort of conformed to what we had when the eyes open there. But kind of what I want to get for the blink is to have sort of an under curve here. So let's go ahead and manipulate some of the points a bit. We use the drag tool a little here. Pull these down a bit here. And then what I'm going to do is grab the magnet tool here. Just going to kind of right click out the area of influence there. And let's just kind of mush it down a bit there. And do some more dragging here. Just kind of tweaking the shape the way I want it there. And again, from sort of a downward view, I kind of want to have a little bit of an undercurve there. So, and let's grab just those lashes, rotate them a little bit more. And focus a little bit on the underside of the lid as well. Tend to get a lot of motion out of the underside of the lid. Most of it in the blink is your top lid. I'm going to pull up the bottom lid a little bit just to seal it up there. So let's grab those polygons in there. And just going to move that up and out a little bit there. Going to want to seal this off here. And we have a blink. And what I want to do is I want to unhide and just check and make sure that the eyeball isn't protruding or anything like that. Now if I go back to the base, I can compare those eye blinks. Okay. And there's a few different targets we want to create. Another one we can do is a squint. Let's go ahead and grab our purple color again here. And this time I'm just going to keep everything unhidden. Just going to manipulate some of this geometry since I've already got it selected here. So let's go ahead and create a target that we're going to call squint. And again, I could come back down here and say new. I've also mapped the make endomorph to a hotkey, the E on the keyboard. So this is just a quicker, easier way to sort of create the morph. So again, I'm going to call it E.squint and say OK. Now you can see down in the lower right we're on that target there. Okay. And I'm just going to let's just deselect the upper lid there. Because in the squint I'm just going to kind of focus on the lower lid here. And let's just pull it up a little bit. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up the middle kind of a little bit to sort of get that exaggerated opposite curve kind of shape there. Kind of a cartoony kind of a curve going the opposite direction sort of shape there. And like all the targets here, I'm just going to manipulate some of the points around a bit. So I get that sort of squint feel. Go back to the base and squint. So while making the targets for the eyes and the brows, one thing I want to be able to do is to take these targets and split them up left and right. So I could take a blink and make it into different side winks and things like that. So let's take a look at how to do that. I'm going to go ahead and again, let's grab the statistics panel here. And I'm going to select that purple color there. And I'm going to take this squint target we just made, and I'm going to make left and rights out of it. Okay. So let's go ahead and open up again, the vertex map window here. And let's find our morph. You can see we've got the targets in here. And what I'm going to do is let's turn symmetry off so we can separate them. And start by deselecting the right side. I'm going to come into the vertex map window here. I'm going to say copy vertex map. And I'm going to just call it squint L for left. And since I've only got the left side selected, it'll basically only add that target to that geometry. So now you can see it's sort of removed from the rest of the head, but the target is there on that side. So now I've got a squint and a squint left. Okay, and let's do one more here. Let's grab the statistics panel again so we can grab that geometry there. And this time, deselect the left-hand side. And again, I'll go ahead and copy that. And we'll call this one squint R for right. So now I have squint, but then I can also sort of break them up. And you'll find that through the course of animating that you'll much more frequently use the left and rights rather than the symmetrical target. I keep the symmetrical target in there in case I want to base more targets off this one in the future. But once you start animating, you'll find that you'll pretty much be using mostly the left and rights. I could do the same thing with the blink target as well to create winks. Start with the left here. Go ahead and copy. And again, you'd probably normally call this wink. I prefer to just call it blink left and right, just to keep them all in the same alphabetical order. That way when I start animating, I've got blink and then I've got blink left and right there, rather than a wink, which is way down at the bottom of the list there. So let's make our right blink or wink. Oops. Okay. Copy. Blink R. And let's see, we've got blink, blink R, and blink L, which are really, again, winks, but I prefer to call them blink R and L. Okay. So now let's go ahead and take a look at some of the other shapes we have in the head that already has all the targets in it, specifically for the eye region. So again, I've still got the model in there. And this one has the left and right blinks here. Let's find our E section. And there's the squints, left and right, that we just made. And a couple other shapes I made. It was this sort of a wide-eyed kind of thing. And I've broken those up into left and right as well. And through the course of animating, I could take these shapes and make combinations with them to sort of get various different eye shapes. But generally, if you have a closed eye as well as a really wide eye and kind of this sort of squinty feel, you can get most of the shapes that you want initially, at least to make the character talk and things like that. You might find that through the course of animation you might need specific little targets for controlling certain regions, but you can always add those as you go along. Okay, so now we've taken a look at creating the shapes for the mouth and the eye region. The next section of the head we want to take a look at is the upper portion, the brow and the forehead and things like that. Let's go ahead and take a look at our model again. And again, this time we're going to focus on this region up here. So let's go ahead, I'm going to turn symmetry back on here. And let's go ahead and select those brows. Now let's zoom in a little bit here. And I'm going to just go ahead and select some of the geometry around the eyebrows for starters, just to create, again, a selection set. Let's go right across there. And I'll get some of the forehead in there as well. Let's grab some of these too, spread it out a little bit. And I'm going to make a selection set out of that so I can just keep referring to it when I make the brow shapes. Okay. So let's come back over to Detail and Polygons, Sketch Color. And I'll go ahead and maybe call it dark blue. Okay. And usually what I want to do while making these targets is be able to see not only the eyebrows but also the eyes and how the shape change is affecting them as well. So what I like to do is hide the geometry but keep at least the front of the face visible. So let's go ahead and with the statistics panel open here, let's grab that face part. And don't need those. Let's go ahead and hit plus. So we're left with sort of just this front section here. And now let's select our color, the color blue that we just created for the brow region there. Okay. And I'm going to hit my hotkey for Make Endomorph there, which I've assigned it to E. And this group I'm going to call B, period, for brows. And let's start with a target I call stern. Sort of a stern, like almost angry, but more sort of furrowed brow. Okay. And what I'm going to do is, let's go ahead and deselect some of those. And I'm going to deselect all these forehead ones here. And for this stern target, I'm going to start by just taking those brows and using the Move tool. I'm just going to move them down. I'm going to bring them kind of low over the eyes, because again, I'm sort of exaggerating this emotion. Actually, what I want to do is, again, this is how I want to see how it's affecting the area around the eyes. Let's go ahead and, I'm going to go ahead and hit undo. I'm going to deselect those right there, because I don't want to get too much of an overlap right there. Again, let's move down again. That looks much better there. And again, I want to make it look believable, but at the same time, I'm not overly concerned with exactly how the shapes would look if, under real muscle and things like that. And let's go to the side view and just move it forward a bit. So now I get this kind of furrowed brow, sort of an anger look. Okay. And what I want to do is sort of focus on this area here. I want to get a little bit of a sort of a bunching there. If you look again in the mirror and you sort of furrow your brow, you'll see there's all kinds of sort of skin folding going on right in the center there. Kind of want to exaggerate a little area coming over the bridge of the nose there. Again, this is all sort of to emphasize the point of the emotion that this shape makes, but at the same time I want it to sort of be believable. Let's pull that in a little bit there. I don't want to have anything look too weird, like that pinch right there. There we go. So you see I get a little bit of a sort of a furrowing going on right in the center there. And let's check again against the base. Okay. Yep. And let's see, another target, which is pretty much the exact opposite of this one, would be the sort of surprised look to the brows. The brows really high up. So let me go ahead and, with the statistics panel again, select my blue here. And this time I'm going to go ahead and make a target called B. I'm just going to call this up, brows up, because really all it's going to be is sort of an exaggerated lifting of the eyebrows. Okay. And let's take a look down here. Make sure, let's deselect some of these here for now, and all the ones directly above the eye there. And let's deselect some of the temple ones there. And let's start with just these. And again, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take the Move tool and I'm just going to pull them up really drastically. You can see I'm getting sort of a craziness going on there. But basically what I want to do is tweak all that out just by editing the points around. So I've yanked them up quite a bit. And let's go ahead and let's grab the brows there. Went maybe a little bit too far on the corners there. I usually like to sort of push it to the limit and then see where I need to adjust it. Again, let's take a look in here. Let's fix all this here. And I kind of don't want as much of that furrow going on, but maybe I want a little bit of a spot here. And again, it may look sort of out of the ordinary, but you kind of want it to look almost ridiculous. Because again, this is similar to some of those other shapes where it's one of those things where you probably won't have it on the frame for more than a fraction of a second. Let's adjust the brows here a little bit. Just kind of move them up. Okay. And it's just a lot of point tweaking, moving them around a bit. Get a little bit of furrowing going there. But I don't want it to be as much as the stern target was. I'm doing a lot of editing in the perspective view as well. And what I'm going to do now is go ahead and I'm going to grab some of the front section here. I'm going to try and push it even further. Deselect some of these. really get sort of a strange, super exaggerated feel there. Just hit Tab to toggle off the subdivisional surfaces so I can get a little bit of a better look at what's going on in here. Let's pull these down a little bit, spread that out a little bit more. And let me reference that with the base, see how it looks. So you can see we're getting a really drastic change there. Let's unhide and just see how it looks against the hairline there. Pretty goofy, but again, sort of want to kind of push it to the extreme there. In fact, let's grab those brows and zoom in again here. I'm going to pull those up even more. Oops. To get that little sort of bump thing going on there. It's kind of a goofy element, kind of. Let's go ahead and open up our vertex map panel again here. And I'll grab that up target we just made there. And we're going to break it up the same way we did the eyes, but then you'll see what editing we have to do to make the target look right. So let's go ahead and grab statistics panel, grab the blue there. And I'm going to turn symmetry off. And let's start with the left here. These on the left and say copy vertex map. We'll call it B up left. And again, if you're looking at it in the front view, this is sort of, we're looking at the character's back, so essentially our left is his left kind of thing. Okay. So now let's take a look. See, the change was so drastic, and now we've got some geometry in between here, which is also being affected by the target. So we've made the left and right, but now we've got to do a little bit of tweaking to get it to look right. Okay. So let's just go ahead and make our right side as well here. Let's go back to that one. And this time we'll deselect the left here. Okay. And let's say copy vertex map. B up right. Okay. So now we've got our left and rights and both looking equally bizarre there. So let's go ahead and start with the left here. And let's fix some of that. You can see that because of the drastic change, we're getting sort of a big split right there. So we're going to go ahead and hit Tab to turn off the subdivisional surfaces there. Oops. And I've changed the viewport here so I can see some of the points a little bit. You can see sort of what's going on here a little bit. Kind of some tweaking here. Just going to manipulate some of the points around a bit. Sort of alleviate that sort of drastic bump there. And I may have to edit the actual target slightly, but and again, I'm not too concerned with getting it to look perfect because, again, this sort of target probably rarely have it one side completely down and the other all the way up for more than a fraction of a second. And let's get the eyebrow there a little bit more sucked into the head. It's a little bit better looking there. And let's go to our right side one, and let's fix that one up too. I'm just going to start pulling some of the points down. Got a little less of a severe crease going on there. Kind of want to just avoid anything that looks too broken, so to speak. Like a big divot in the front of the head there. And you can see the sort of goofy looks that you can get out of the character. Let's go ahead and take a look at some of the other brow targets that we've made in the version of the model that already has all the targets in there. So I'm going to go back down to this one here. And let's open up the vertex map window again. And the B group, so all the brow targets we've had. Got the stern one we just made there. And the up one, it's really sort of exaggerated there. And I've also made a couple of other ones. Similar to the stern is the sort of angry. It's a little bit more, sort of the stern with the corners of the brow pulled up a little bit. And again, those I've separated as to left and rights. And also got this sort of worried brow in here. And this is just kind of a, again, pretty much what it is. Sort of if the character was concerned or worried about something. And I've broken those up into left and right as well. And it's that there's, again, similar to the eyes, there might be targets that you may need the course of animation on a per scene basis for different brow shapes. You'll probably find that you'll be adding more targets as you animate the character. But these are kind of the basics that get you started, enable you to make the character have a range of different emotions as well as talk and be surprised and things like that. Okay, so the last thing we want to look at are control targets. Little endomorphs we can make to add a little bit more to each target and throw some asymmetry in there and things like that. So I've got the model here that already has all the targets on it. Let's go ahead and take a look at some of those control targets. Again, I'm going to open up the vertex map window here. And it's going to uncollapse the morphs there. We've got our B for brows and C for control. And you can see the first one here is one I call jaw left. Sort of angles the jaw out as if he was sort of rotating his jowls. And that gives you a little bit of added control if you want the jaw to sort of make a sort of a curved motion while he's speaking or chewing or anything like that. And another one I have is just these lip ones here. Lips left and right. You can see all I've done is just taken the lips and sort of just rotated them. Nothing else on the face, just the lips. And I can dial those in combination with other targets just to add a little bit of asymmetry to the targets that I need to. And I can go left or right so the character's not always going asymmetrical to the same side. And I've got lower lip down. And again, you can see it looks pretty goofy. It's just grabbing the lip geometry and moving it down. I use that just in case I ever need to add a little bit more movement of the lips. Bring it down a little bit, bring it up a little bit. And same thing with upper lip up. And you can also use these targets if you want to bring the lower lid up a little, you can still use the lower lid down. You just reverse its, give it a negative value. And take a look in the side view here. Just grab the teeth. Okay. And these teeth targets that I've made, we've got teeth back and teeth down, teeth bottom down, and teeth top up. And these are, sometimes with these extreme exaggerated shapes, the journey from one to the other, you might get an occasional protrusion or a bizarre look to the teeth. And this just enables you to sort of bring them back a little if you need to. And again, usually, I push them back quite a bit, but usually don't ever move them to the extreme 100% of that target. You just use them to dial in a little slight movement there. And last section of control targets, I've grouped under T for tongue. It's basically all the targets that control the tongue. Let me just grab the tongue here. And it's basically similar to the teeth, tongue back, tongue down, and tongue up. It's just if you need to add a little bit of tongue movement in there. And I've also got this one called DN, where you can see in the side view there, when I go to D and N, it sort of rotates the tongue into that DN position, and that's for words. Sometimes if you want the character to do like a da-na-na-na kind of thing, where the mouth remains open but the tongue needs individual movement. Okay, so now we've got a variety of different endomorphs for the character to make him talk and create different emotions and things like that. But you'll find that when you're animating on a per scene basis, you'll always probably need special targets. Some scenes might require the character to blow a trumpet or chew or anything like that, in which case you'll need to create those targets. You can always bring the character into the modeler, add the targets, and access them in the layout. Okay, so now we're ready to go into the layout and access all the endomorphs we just created and start applying them to the character model. So moving up the layout here, I'm going to go ahead and load a scene with the character and his rig. Just go into our actors folder and our Owlman here. And we've got our posed scene in the pose folder there. We've got the character just sort of standing in a pose. Now typically, facial animation is one of the last things you do after cleanup in a scene. But for the sake of demonstration, in this particular scene here, we can use this one where the character is not moving and make it a little bit easier to see the endomorphs and the shapes. But you always kind of want to play them to the camera and sort of adjust them as needed to look like the best shape to the camera. So now I've got the character. What I'm going to do is, his body is selected here, and I'm just going to go ahead and hit P, or Item Properties, to bring up the Item Properties panel here. And what I want to do is come over to Deform, the Deform tab, and where it says Add Displacement, what I want here is Morph Mixer. Now you should see it pop up with the amount of targets that we just created. And go ahead and double click on that to bring up the Morph Mixer panel. And I just move it over so we can see him here. Now this panel contains all the different groups that we created, and in each group tab is all of the different names of the targets we made. Now you can see now this is why we create the groups using just this initial, because this window isn't sizable. So if I named all the groups things like brows or control, expressions, things like that, it tends to go right off the panel and the words get truncated and you can't read them. And it also doesn't scale this way. So I like to keep things like expressions and phonemes, even though they're for the same area, in different groups. But now you can see that, just go to the Browse tab and we'll start moving some of these around. And you can see the effect that it has on the character there. We can basically dial in the percentage of that target. And you might notice that as I drag these sliders around, I'm getting the little key right there. And basically the way this panel works is that anytime you drag these sliders, you create a keyframe automatically. If you hit Reset down here, it puts all these back to 0, You see it makes a keyframe for everyone in the group there. When we start animating the actual facial expressions, we'll look at different ways to utilize these tools. Again, you want to come in and sort of test out all the targets, see how they're working, make sure that the shapes look the way you want them to, and that nothing too out of the ordinary is happening sort of in the in-between stages. And you could test out different things like combining the targets. Like we've got our AI here. And you could sort of test things out, like I'll give a little AI there, and let's combine that with a little sneer. You see you can get a little bit of that extra lip movement there. And you can also use things like the control targets that we just mentioned to change the shape of the mouth, angled one way or the other. Just adds a little bit there. And again, these are the kind of control targets that you don't really want to necessarily dial in all the way. Maybe just add a little bit. And of course, teeth in people's heads really don't move, but again, these are just sort of if you need to adjust the shape a little bit. Okay. And let's go ahead and let's try and combine these here. Maybe a little up here. Yeah, we've got our wide eyes. And maybe a funny, let's try our W here. Just kind of testing out the targets. And again, within the panel, you'll notice there's other options as well. Once you've created all of your animation, you can take the file that you created and save it, or load a file that you've created earlier. There's also the graph editor. The graph editor will bring up all the curves for what's in the particular group that you're in. And again, once we start animating the character, we'll look at how to utilize these tools. Okay, so now what we're going to do is take the character with all the endomorphs we created and have him actually animate and speak a line. What we're going to do is take a listen to the audio track and use a dope sheet. It's actually a blueprint for the animated scene. It contains a column for the action of the character as well as a column for the frame numbers. What we're going to be focusing on is this column for the dialogue, and we're going to mark out what frames the syllables actually fall on. So now I'm going to take a look at our audio, the WAV file for the character's line, and I'm using Premiere here, but you can use any type of software that you prefer that enables you to scrub through audio. So let's go ahead and import that WAV file. And I'm just going to go to Import File. And it's located in the Audio folder within our Content directory here. And it's our Owlman line there. Okay. And the first thing I want to do is just make sure that I have all the settings right to the way I'm going to animate the scene. So let me just quickly go up to Project and set that up. I'm going to change some of the defaults here. I just want to make sure that I'm in 24 frames per second because that's what I'm going to be animating the character at. So I'll change the time base to 24. And in the time display here, rather than seeing the time code, what I want to see is the frames. So I'm going to switch that to frames and samples so I can make note of exactly what frame the sounds happen at. Okay, and just say OK. Okay. So now you'll see there's a frame number in there as I scroll through. So let me just drag this audio file and drop it into our audio track here. And I'll collapse it there so I can actually see. Evildoers! So I can scrub through and hear the line. Now what I want to do is I'm going to make note of this number here. That's the frame we're on. So basically we've got Evildoers! Beware a line. That. And the entire clip is about 130 frames, but we're really only going to be focusing on the lines here. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up to right about here. The way the animation is, the character is doing some business before he gets ready to say his line. So there's a couple of seconds, about 1 second's worth of the character not speaking, and then he starts talking. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come right about to where the audio starts, and I'm just going to frame by frame it here. And as soon as I start to hear something, it's right around frame 33, 34. I'm going to make note of what sound I'm hearing. So that way I know that the animation should start right about at that frame 33, 34-ish. So let me go ahead and play this here.
Evildoers, beware the owl man.
Right, so he says, evildoers, beware the owl man. And so now that I know that's what he's saying, kind of want to listen to this.
Evildoers, beware the owl man.
Pretty much kind of want to listen to an audio track, especially if it's spoken words, over and over and over until you can sort of recite it backwards in your head and forwards. That way you can imagine the acting that the character is going to need to do, and basically pre-plan in your head what you want to convey.
Evildoers, beware the owl man.
Now again, this guy's sort of a campy superhero guy, so we want him to sort of have like a sort of a confident look on his face, but at the same time he needs to sort of have that ham actor kind of feel to him. So again,
evildoers, beware the owl man.
so what we're going to be listening for is things like E, and then the V sound, and the B sound of beware, and things like that. So once I've listened to the track over and over and over, I pretty much know where to expect these things to happen. The first thing we want to listen for is an E sound, and that happens right around this frame. About 34 is probably the last frame of silence. So then I'm going to go scrub a frame, and I can sort of see in the audio track where the spikes are. The loudest, that's generally the loudest part, not necessarily the hardest part of the syllable, but where it gets the loudest. So I'm going to say that about 34, he starts to open his mouth, and about, let's say, frame 37 or so, he's at the peak of saying that E sound. So I'm just going to make note on my dope sheet that there's an E sound right around 37, and it starts at about 34. So it's kind of closed mouth, opening, opening, broad E. Okay. So then this is right around where I'm hearing the V sound. Right around frame 40. So I'm going to make note of that. And I'm just sort of doping this out on my dope sheet, but at the same time I can always adjust the frames within the animation if I'm finding that they're not right on. And I'm listening for the L sound. And one thing that's kind of important that I want to also think about is what words he's saying and how they work with the shapes. You don't always want to add a phoneme for every single letter that you hear in the word. And when we start looking at the shapes in layout, we'll look more into how to make those shapes and how to use them in terms of making the character look like he's actually speaking the lines. Okay, and the next sound we're going to listen for is the D. It's right around that frame 45. Let's back it up a couple here. Start to hear it right around 45. And into like frame 47 and 48 we get that sort of ooh, the starting of the ooh in evildoers. And I'm just making note on the dope sheet all these frames and what frames they fall on. And he sort of says evildoers. He sort of drags out that R. So I get a lot of kind of frames that are just kind of he's just kind of saying evildoers. So I'm just making note that at what point he's basically the sound stops and how long each rolls out the R. Okay. And that's the word evildoers. Now the next thing I want to listen for is the B in beware. It happens right around frame 76. So right around frame 76 we start to hear the B in beware. And right around, somewhere around 78, 79 we hear the E. But you can also, if you listen to the track, you can hear it's not as, the E is not as prominent as it is in the word evildoers. So it's kind of more like beware. It sort of glanced over. And I kind of make note of that in the dope sheet as well, so that way I know when I'm animating how strong to make that E. We don't want it to be quite as broad as it is in the word evildoers. So you can see here right around 80 and 81, you start to get that W sound in beware. So right around 80, 81 we get the W. And about 83, 84 we get that A in the beware. As I go through, I'm just noting on the dope sheet where I have those hard consonants and broad vowels. So I'm listening for the W, then the A, where. So it's kind of that consonant and then into a big vowel. Now the word the, when he says the owl man, sort of glanced over. We don't really want him to animate truly all those shapes saying the, because he says sort of the owl man. We're sort of just kind of glance over it. But I'm still going to make note. It's right around in frame 90 we get that TH, but it's going to be subtle. And again, the E in the is right around 91, 92, but again, it's even more subtle than the E in the beware, not nearly as broad as it'll be in the evildoers. Now this one, we want a big ow in the owl man. So right around, say, 96 or so, between 95 and 96, we get that ow. And then right around 98, we're getting into the L. And just start to get the hint of the M around frame 101, the M in man for owl man. And again, I'm just making note as I go on the dope sheet, frame 101 in the M. And that's the consonant, and then I'm going to go into the A for an, man. And it's going to be right around 103, 104. And again, the end of the word is sort of drolled out, man. And it's an N, so it's going to be subtle. It's sort of just going to be kind of his mouth coming to a close. Okay, and I'm just making note of that on the dope sheet. And it pretty much ends right around frame 112. It goes into silence to a point where his lips won't be moving much anymore. We'll still keep some brow movement and things like that in there to keep him looking alive, but this is the point at which he's no longer talking. Okay, so once we have all the sounds notated on the dope sheet at the appropriate frame, we're ready to go into Lightwave and start manipulating the endomorphs to create the actual animation. So let's switch back into our layout scene again here. And what I'm going to do is, this is a scene we had where we were testing out some of the endomorphs. I'm going to go ahead and remove the morph mixer from the displacement channel here on the object, because I made a few keyframes in there and stuff while testing it out that I really don't want anymore. And what I want to do before I start animating is just to make sure that I'm in the right frame rate for the scene that I just doped out. So let's go ahead and bring up the general options panel, hit O on the keyboard. And right where it says frames per second there, right now it's at 30. I'm going to go ahead and change that to 24. So that way now I'm at a frame rate of 24 frames per second, which is concurrent with the dope sheet that I just made. And in turn will link up properly. Now I already have a keyframe on the character that we made at 1, which is just his pose there. I'm just going to go ahead and leave that for now. You'll notice it shifted off 1 because we changed the frame rate. But we're just going to focus on his head for now. So let's go ahead and re-add the morph mixer there. And I'm going to go ahead and double click on it to open up the panel. And let's see, let's go back to frame 1. Okay. Now I'm at frame 1, and up until right around frame 33 or 34 or so, he's not actually speaking anything, he's just sort of doing his thing. So up until that point, I kind of want to just have him sort of have some expression on his face that we could always animate afterwards, but prior to him actually speaking, let's just give him a little bit of an expression. So let's go ahead and come into the expression tab here. And what I want to do is I want to create a key on all these channels. So I'm going to hold down Control and Shift and just kind of drag out one of these sliders. I'm going to give this a little bit of this kind of thing here, just to tweak his mouth a little bit. You'll notice since I held down Control and Shift, it automatically created a keyframe on everything. And also what I want to do is go ahead and go into my other channels that involve his mouth, specifically his phonemes, hit Reset. I've got a keyframe now on all of those as well, and I'm going to do that for all of his targets. You know, we're starting to focus on the mouth, but eventually we're going to add brow targets and things like that as well. And not quite as crucial in the control targets, but just for the sake of consistency, I want to have a keyframe for everything at 1 there. And actually, let's give him a little bit of a kind of one eyebrow down, maybe one up a little here. Okay. And now let's push ahead to right around frame 30 or so. So I'm going to hit F on the keyboard, which brings up this Go to Frame tab here. Let's go to 30. This is right before he starts speaking. And I noted on the dope sheet that it was right around 34 or so when he starts to actually make a sound. So prior to that, a couple frames prior, we want to have a closed mouth. So again, right around here, you see that we're no longer on frame 1, so all of our keyframes are gone. I want to kind of just recreate keyframe on all those. And again, just going to hold down Control and Shift, click and drag, and click and drag. I'm just clicking and dragging just to instigate a keyframe for all those. Right around frame 30, like he's ready to start saying something. And let's move forward to frame 34, and that's right when we have him begin to make sound. And again, let's sort of create a keyframe. I'm going to start by just focusing on his mouth. I'll come back to his eyes and his eyebrows later. First, we're just going to get the lip sync down. So let's get a little of this going here. And do all those controls as well. Again, since I'm focusing on the mouth, I'm going to focus on the controls, expressions, and phonemes for now, and the tongue. Okay. And I noticed that I had made right around frame 35, 36, a really broad E. So let's go ahead and, again, constantly holding down Control Shift because I really want a key for just about everything. I want to get rid of that now. And kind of want to go full out on this E. And let's go ahead and key all those tongues as well. And let's just scrub the frames a little. You can see now what's happening here. E. And I made a note on the dope sheet that the V sound happens right around frame 40 or so. So I've got my extreme broad E. So I'm going to scrub up to roughly frame 40 here. And again, let's go ahead and key all the tongues. Let's go ahead and key all these as well. And this time I'm going to kind of bring up that FV target. And let me key all the controls. Okay, so now let's scrub. So it says evil. So when he moves on to the word evil, the L is really actually sort of subtle. It's one where he's not starting the word with an L, like look. He's sort of ending it like evil. So you really don't see much of that. So I don't want to make that L target too noticeable. Sort of just get a little of that in there. Okay. So let's go ahead and look. And notice on the dope sheet I sort of notated that the L sort of falls right around frames 42 through like 44 or so. So let's go in about 43. And I'm going to key all the controls, key all these. And let's reset all these. And again, I'm not going to go full L, but I want to get a little of that L going there. Not quite the full 100% there. Let's key all the tongues as well. But now let's scrub and just see. So it's a little bit subtle. The big one here would be the E, bowl, right? Okay, and we're getting close to the end here. Let's just go ahead and take the end frame there, and we'll move it up to 120, because that's the extent of the audio file. Okay, and move on. Now, on the listening to the audio, the D sound started to fall right around frame 45. Now, another important thing to think about is that when you're animating the characters, some of the hard consonants can be difficult to see sometimes, especially if it's happening really fast. A lot of times what I like to do is I'm going to put that D sound there, and I'm going to key all the tongue and all the controls as well. Keying all the mouth stuff. What I'm going to do is I have that D there. I'm going to jump to frame 46 and key it again. So essentially I'm going to have 2 frames of the same shape, that hard D sound. Because basically what I want to do is really make sure that that becomes visible and that it's sort of hard consonant and then breaks into a loud vowel. So here he's going to go from D to doers. Notice that the big loud ooh falls somewhere around frame 48. So I'm going to go to frame 48 here. So you've got 2 frames again of D. Let's head to 48. And let's reset these and start to add that ooh. Now again, I want to be sure that when I add the ooh, I'm going to key all the other mouth shapes as well. And I think I want to push it a little bit more. I'm going to have a little bit more of an exaggeration there. Let's come back in here. Let's add a little bit of that O to that, which in this case sort of just gives it more of a downward jaw shape. Now let's scroll back to 46, which is our last D. And come back down here, just looking at the shape change. I think maybe for the ooh, let's go back to our control tab. And let's add a little bit of jaw left. Because what I'm going to have him do is kind of go do and have his jaw kind of come around as he brings it up to the ers part of the word. And we start to hear the R sound in that word right around frame 50 or so. And again, this R sound is it's at the end of the word, so it's kind of going to be more subtle. It's more like he's just sort of coming to a close on the word. So let's go ahead and I'm going to bring that back. And maybe a little jaw right. So that way I get it sort of that going on. And then let's go over to the expressions here. Let's fix all those to 0. And let's try and make that subtle R shape there. I'm going to use the ooze one still. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of, let's go right side. Like words. He's just kind of making a funny little shape there. Okay. And when I go and do the in-betweens, I can sort of adjust that jaw action to sort of make it come a little bit more on a curve rather than down and up. Okay. So let's take a look at what we've got so far. Let's go into the scene editor here. Grab the scene editor. And under audio here, I'm going to go ahead and say load audio. And locate our audio file here. And now we should see down here, if you have this activated, you'll see the actual spikes of the sounds there. Because what I want to do now is make a preview. Now that I have the audio in here, I can actually see the animation along with hearing it. So I'm just going to preview just the range that we just animated here. So I'm going to go ahead and say preview, make preview. Now let's say 30 to 55, just to cover the range of stuff we just animated here. Okay. And
Evildoer, 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 evildoer.
so it took a second for the audio to sort of kick in. Needed to loop a couple times to hear it. So if you have any of that skipping going on, just let it play through a couple times and it'll catch up to itself. It's kind of hard to see right now because we've animated so little of it, but we can get the idea whether or not we need to adjust any of the frames.
Evildoer, 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 evildoer.
Okay. And I can tell right now what I think I want to do is, let's go to our P tab here, and let's use these little back arrows to go back to our frame that we made the E sound in. Okay. And I notice in the animation that it's kind of looks a little lax. He sort of says evildoers, but I really want him to sort of explode into that E. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over to this frame here, and I'm going to take this target that I've got at 100%, and I'm going to push it beyond. Let me try going up to, say, 130%. See how I sort of pushed it even further there. Just kind of exaggerate that even a bit more. I really want him to sort of have this sort of goofy feel to his animation. Now again, he sort of drops off the S as he finishes the saying the line there. So you want to have him sort of finish up right around frame 60 or so. And what I'm going to do is have him, he's just kind of saying at the end of evildoers. So I just want the mouth to sort of close a little bit. So it's coming right around frame 60 or so. And let's key all these mouths here. And he's just going to kind of be like, evildoers. Maybe a little of that S, but not much. Because again, he's just sort of closing his mouth after he finished saying it. If you watch yourself in the mirror say the line, you probably notice you'll really kind of see, if you exaggerate it, you'll see the ooh, but you won't really see an S shape necessarily. You're just kind of seeing through your teeth kind of thing. And I like the little sneer. Let's keep that there. Let's bring his jaw back to normal here. Okay. Now we notice the next consonant we hear is the B. That's right around frame 77. So there's a little bit of silence for half a second or so. Now as I scrub through here, you could hear the audio sort of ticking through in Lightwave, but it doesn't quite make the sound that's really on that frame. So don't necessarily think that you're on the wrong frame. Just if you dope the scene out properly, just trust that. And then run previews to make sure. Okay. So let's go up to, right before he says the B, I want to close his mouth. Let's say right around frame 73 or so. So let's bring that down. And I still kind of want him to have, you know, a closed mouth, but I don't want it to be this perfectly symmetrical one from the base model. So let me add a little bit more of this target here. And maybe even a little this kind of tweak there to kind of offset that even more. And then I'm going to go up to frame 77. And right about there, I'm going to reset that. And I'm going to reset that. And I'm going to add that B target. The MBP one there. And it's pretty asymmetrical. Maybe I will add a little bit more of the off-center one here. And again, just like the C, D, G, K that I did earlier in the doers, I want to hold this B for an extra frame as well. So I'm going to go ahead to frame 78. And basically I'm just going to keep everything the same here. Key them all again. So I have 2 frames of B. And that way when you see the animation play through, you'll really pick up on that hard beware kind of feeling. And let's go over to frame 80. And again, this E isn't going to be as hard as the E in evildoers. It's going to be a lot more subtle. So in beware, just kind of add a bit of E, but maybe not even that much. We'll see when we run a preview how it looks. And just kind of playing around with some of these. Okay. And let's go up a couple more frames here to where we're at a W here. And let me reset these for now. And again, this W is probably not, again, going to be, we don't want it to be too extreme, because it's sort of in the middle of the word, he's sort of rolling through it, beware. So while we do want it to be exaggerated, we don't want it to be quite as much as it was in the previous words. And let's scroll up to right around 84, where we had that hard A. That's where we want to reset that. Let's add a little bit of our, whoops, that's not the one we want. We want the A here. And you can see it's kind of going into his chin a little bit there, but if you're animating it, you can adjust the animation as needed. And let's just key our other targets here. And it's a good point to save the scene. Let's go ahead and save it. Just keep it in here. Let's call it pose facial. I'll add an 01 at the end of it, just in case we want to save more versions of it. And let's run another preview. And this time let's extend it out to frame 84. Okay, and let's take a look.
Evildoers! Beware evildoers! Beware evildoers! Beware evildoers! Beware evildoers! Beware evildoers!
So it's coming along. We'll have to tweak some of the in-betweens to get the shapes just right. But for now, we're just laying out the key poses. Again, we were on frame 84. Let's go ahead and finish keying all these here. And we're on A and where. And you sort of beware, kind of roll that out into, let's say, right around frame 87 or so. So let's go ahead and key all these. Going to reset that, and just gonna add a little bit of this. It's kind of doing that R sound. So add a little bit of that W, and then I'm going to add maybe a little bit more of this sneer. Beware. Again, if you look at yourself say the word beware, sort of the end of the word is just kind of you closing your mouth. Beware. Okay. And then we're forward a couple frames to the TH and the for the owl man. And again, this is going to be a subtle, he sort of rolls through it. Beware the owl man. You got to kind of listen to the audio track and think about not just the words, but what you're actually hearing. Because if a character says, I don't know, you might think, okay, he's saying, I don't know. But really what you're hearing, he might actually just be saying, I don't know. In which case you wouldn't really see much lip movement. So keep in mind what you're hearing there. And at frame 90, where we've got the, it's kind of a, I want to add that TH, but not the, we don't want to go this far with it. Just kind of want a little bit of it. And I definitely want to add some of this offset here. Let's tweak his lips a little bit. There we go. This target looks, by itself, looks pretty symmetrical. So, and again, we've got an E and the, but again, it's pretty subtle and it's really fast. So, let's go ahead to frame 92. And when he says the, he just kind of probably opens his mouth a little bit. So let's key all these. And let's add a little the. Drop that. The. And it kind of rolls right into the word owl. And it's right around 95 or so where we really get the big owl.
Ow, 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 ow.
Right, so it's going to be sort of the and then bang into an open O, or more like an ah sound, owl. So let's go to 95 and let's kind of add, and we'll use this ah, like an owl. And let's do a little of this here. And maybe we'll roll his jaw out this way for this one. Have it kind of come around here.
Ow, 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 yeah.
The
Ow, ow,
owl.
ow.
Okay, and let's check for that W. Sort of a W, but it's not a W, it's kind of an owl. So it's kind of it's more of a subtle thing. We're going to bring it up to probably right about and combine it right into the L sound. Let's come up to 97. Just kind of put these back here. And let's bring forward maybe a little of this, because he's saying owl. There we go. And sort of the L as well. It's not really a hard L like you would find at the beginning of a word. It's sort of owl. So what I'm going to do is just sort of roll that right into a very subtle L. Let's go ahead and take a look. Let's see how the shape changes if we go straight into the M here. So we're at 101. That might be all we need here. Frame 101 is where we noted that the M sound begins. Let's go ahead and fix all those. You kind of almost always want to sort of accentuate the consonants at the beginning of a word. Not quite as much when it's rolling through an entire sentence, but you still want to sort of have some exaggeration there. So, and the A sound we noted is right around 104. So let me actually go ahead and make 102 an M2, the old 2 frames per consonant trick, to sort of to one, pick up on the consonant when you see the animation, but also make the journey into the vowel look a little bit more sort of explosive, like a man. There's sort of a little bit of a hesitation before you pop into the open mouth. So, and then let's go over to 104, and again, it's kind of like the owl man. He just kind of says it, and it just kind of rolls out. So it's not like a real hard ah. He's not going to open his mouth that wide. But let's go ahead and that's over, and we will give it a little of this. And let's get a little sneer going there. And again, if you watch yourself say man, you know, it's pretty much just the mouth opens and you make the N sound with your tongue. There's no real lip shape there. So you just kind of say man. So as he goes into the N, he's just going to sort of close his mouth, but I might add a little bit of an L, of a tongue tweak in there. So let's go forward a little bit to where I noted, probably right around here. That's where he starts to droll into the N. And you start keying these here. And to close his mouth a bit, I'm going to take the tongue up, put it up there, and let's move it up a little bit. And then, let's say by frame 112 or so, he's pretty much done talking. And actually, that's not too bad. He's got a little bit of a snicker on his face there. Let's add a little of this. And let's make a preview and just see what our keys look like. And let's go to 112. So while you're making the preview, it goes a little slower. You can kind of watch it and see what areas might be working and what areas might need a little bit more help. You don't want any too drastic lip movement changes, because your lip kind of doesn't, you don't want it to look sort of like it's a loosey-goosey kind of thing going on there. It really is a little bit more rigid. Okay, so now let's take a look at our preview and see what we've got so far. I'm just going to hit the play, let it loop a couple times in case the audio needs to catch up.
Evildoers, beware the owl man. Evildoers, beware the owl man. Evildoers, beware the owl man.
So the first thing I'm noticing is right around the word owl, I think I want to add a little bit more tongue movement in there. Looks like around frame 90, around maybe 96 or so, right when he says owl. So you notice that he says owl. I think I want to get the tongue to come up a little bit here. The preview is nice because you sort of aren't hindered by shadows. You can see right in the mouth and kind of see what's going on there by looking at just the OpenGL here. So let me watch it a couple more times and we'll see what we can...
Evildoers, beware the owl man. Evildoers, beware the owl man.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and take a look around, right around frame 96 or so, and leading into 98. Get some more tongue movement in there. Okay. So let's go ahead and we'll start around 95. See where we are here. We've got a keyframe on 95. Let's go ahead and scrub. Yeah, let's see what our next keyframe is here. Okay, so we've got some room in there between 95 and 101. It goes right up from the owl up into the M. Let's check the phonemes here. Okay, we've got one at 97 on there. Let me go back to the tongue here. Just key these. It's like that one was just overlooked on frame 97. So what I'm going to do, let's see if this will do it. I'm just going to come up to frame 97 here. Let's move the tongue up. Even though that's a D and N by name, still can get a little bit of an L feeling to it. I just want to get some movement in the tongue here. See, now you can sort of almost get an idea that the tongue is kind of going up to the roof of the mouth here. So it might look a little bit better there. Okay, and at the end, let's take a look at the end there. Let's see. Now when he says M, let's check out here. Here's another frame. We have a keyframe on all the phonemes and expressions. I just forgot the tongue here. So let's go ahead and reset that. Okay. Okay, so let's make another preview. And now we've got the phonemes sort of looking right on the keys. Let's just check the movement and see where we might want to add some keys to put a little in-betweens in there to get a little bit more punchiness to the mouth. So you'll notice that when looking at the preview in the course of the animation, what we have now is the mouth going from keyframe to keyframe on the key poses of the phonemes. Now if we listen to the audio track and the way he says things, we might want to add a little bit more punchiness to what's happening in the scene. Specifically, most often when it goes from consonants to vowels, you kind of want to have a hard consonant and then sort of expand into a vowel. So we might have right now something that's kind of like a do-ers, where you might want to be like more like doers, rather than what we have now, which is doers. So let's take a look and see what the preview looks like.
Evildoers, beware the owl man. Evildoers, beware the owl man. Evildoers, beware the owl man. Evildoers, beware the owl man.
Okay, so let's take a look. Let's start off with that doers. And we're looking at the jaw movement here as well. There's only a couple frames in between those keys.
Evildoers, beware the owl man. Evildoers,
so we might not have much room to adjust.
Beware the owl man. Evildoers, beware the owl man.
Let's take a look at the A in air and the oo in doers. So let's see, right around frame 48 or so. Let's head over there. So we're right at the oo and doers. Let's see what our last frames are. We only have a couple frames to work with here. 46 to 48. So let's go ahead and what I'm going to do is open up the graph editor here. I'm going to click on the button here for graph editor, and it'll bring me to all of these shapes within the group we're in now. So I've got all my P's, the phonemes, in there. Okay. Now let's take a look at frame 48. And let's see. we just go to the keys that I have movement on here. Let's zoom in on this one a little here. Select some of the keys and I hit A to fit them in there. So since we only have a couple of frames to work with here, I kind of want to, rather than add some more keyframes, maybe I'll just adjust the splines a bit. So let's take frame 48. And this is going from our CDGK, is going from its value, which was, you could see here, we had a hold. There's only one frame in between here. That's the D, D, U. And it goes from the D to the D being inactive. And you also notice that there's a little bit of a dip because the splines aren't linear. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this keyframe here and let's make it a Bezier spline. Okay. And basically what I want to do is have it, rather than sort of slope down like that, I want it to come down a little bit more drastic, a little bit more punchy. So let's hold down Alt and grab the handle on the left here. And I'm just going to kind of do that. It's a really subtle change I'm making, but I'm going to add it to the D as well as the other channels in this particular animation that are affected, like the U and the O. And any of the ones where there's no transition there, we can pretty much go right over. So again, here we're going from the O from 0 to its slight value there. Let's go ahead and Bezier that. And again, I want it to, rather than just sort of ramp up like that, I kind of want it to bing up a little bit more, kind of like shroop. So I'm going to pull this one. Again, if I'm holding down the Alt key, I can sort of just control one of the handles, whereas if I don't hold down the Alt key, we get that. So I'm just going to kind of do that. Now you can see the slope is a little bit more punched up there. And let's do it for the U as well. Again, these are very subtle changes, and it's all just sort of part of cleanup. We don't really have really enough keyframes to throw in an in-between. We could throw one at 47, but we don't really want to key all the other shapes as well. Okay. Now let's check out the A and where. That was right around here. Let's go to okay. Now let's go back to, since I closed the panel there, let me just reopen it here. And we should be right around a keyframe. Let's see. 78 is our B. B, and that's the W, and that's the A. So what I want to do is, real quick, let me just look at the preview one more time. I'm not going to make another preview. Let me just go play preview, and let's look at that A.
Evildoers, beware the owl man. Evildoers, beware the...
You see, the mouth opens pretty well. Let's go to beware. But I think what I need is to even push that even further. Let's take a look again.
Beware the owl man. Evildoers, beware the owl.
Yeah, the A in air. We'll probably push that even further and even get a little more punchy as well. So let's crank this up a bit. And not too worried about the jaw going through the chest there a little bit, because in the course of the animation, the character will be positioned as such that the head won't be colliding like that. Just going to go ahead and crank that down even more there, so it'll even look even more crazy. Let's go to see where our last key was here. There's our W, and we want to kind of snap that into that. There's only 2 frames again. So let's adjust those curves in the graph editor again. We're going to focus on this W here and the AIs. Okay. So I'm just going to right click out here, capital A. Zoom in a little bit. And let's take a look right here. Now the AI goes from 0 up to its value there. So let's go ahead and put that to a Bezier. And I'm going to kind of do like that, holding down the Alt key. So this curve here sort of ramps up, dips quicker into that shape. And actually, I'll put this one on a Bezier too. And I'll just kind of flatten it out a little bit there, so it doesn't get any of the shape coming into the move. So it gets a little bit even more punchy there. And let's go to our W down here. And this one we wanted to basically do the opposite. We want it to go quicker down to its shape here. Let's grab this one here. Bezier. So now it's going to punch down a little bit quicker there. Okay. So you can see that's only one frame, but if you look at that, then that, then that, you can see how much closer, whereas this is only one frame in between those two shapes. But it's much closer to the second key than it is the first. And that'll basically sort of make that sort of pop a little bit more. And again, since this guy's kind of a cartoony guy and kind of a, you know, kind of a hamming it up here, his mouth positions are going to, we kind of want them to be exaggerated and almost to the point where you watch this guy talk and almost think it's kind of amusing looking, kind of funny rather than serious. Okay, so let's make another preview here. So with each preview, we're just experimenting more and examining what we've done. And we may find that the changes we made, we might have to alter them again or get rid of them entirely. It's just a matter of taking out what we've got in the preview. So let's take a look here. And let it loop.
Evildoers, beware the owl man. Evildoers, beware the owl man. Evildoers, beware the owl man.
Okay. So now what I'm noticing is that the animation actually is working now, but now it looks that the A in beware almost happens too soon for the audio track. Let's watch again.
Beware the owl man. Evildoers, beware the owl man.
So it's the shape changes are on, but I want to adjust it, and it's only off by probably a frame or so.
Beware the owl man. Evildoers, beware the owl man.
Okay, so let's go back into the graph editor. Let's see where we are. We've got from 84. So let's go ahead and shift those a frame. Okay, so I'm going to open up the graph editor here. And again, let's kind of zoom into this region here. And over here in the channel bin, select all of these channels here. And I'm going to move all these keyframes. Hold down Control and pop that to 85. I just moved all those keyframes over to 85. And what I want to be sure to do as well, since other groupings affect these targets, is to go ahead and do that in these other channels as well. So let's go ahead and graph editor in here. Now on the tongue there is no movement, but just for good measure, let's go ahead and move those as well to 85. Again, there's no movement, but this will just make everything consistently on the same frame in case we need to edit the time values later. Now you'll notice too that as you work within the graph editor, all the little functions of the tool you've got selected are right down here. So since we're moving the keyframes up a time frame, you can see it's Control left mouse button to move it over. So that's why we were holding down Control there. Okay, and let's come into our Control, and then we're going to do expressions as well. Same thing, let's just grab all these guys. And Control, pop that over to 85. And here as well. And if you have screen space to spare, or if you're working with more than one monitor, it's a good idea to leave this open. You could always drop all of your channels into the channel bin and just kind of have the graph editor open constantly and continually accessing it. If you only have one monitor and you don't have a lot of real estate as far as your screen goes, I find it easier usually to just have to hit the graph editor button to bring it back open every once in a while. Okay, so let's make a preview. Okay, let's watch our preview here.
Evildoers, beware the owl man. Evildoers, beware the owl man. Evildoers, beware the owl man. Evildoers, Beware the owl man.
Now,
Evildoers.
almost if the doers, let's just do one last thing here. I'm going to shift the D frames just back one frame because it's almost a little too punchy.
Beware the owl man. Evildoers.
The ooh is right on, so I'm just going to take the D position and shift it back one frame, same way we did. So let's find that. Okay, there we are at 45. So let's grab all these. This time what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the graph editor, and let's go ahead down here in our channels section here, and let's uncollapse the Owlman's body there and go way down to the bottom. And you see our tabs here, our different groups. Okay, let's move that up there. And let's go ahead and double click there. Let's bring up all of our targets that have to do with the mouth. And just uncollapse, hold down Shift to select all of them, and drag and drop. There we go. And since we're kind of in the cleanup stage, and we might want to continue to keep referring to this group of targets, let's go ahead and make this a favorite set. This is all the targets that have anything to do with the mouth, the teeth, the controls, the expressions, and the phonemes. This way, if we have to in the future, after we animate and things like that, we can refer back to these. So let's go ahead and call these just mouth. Okay. And let's go ahead and grab the first one, hold down Shift and grab the last one. And let's zoom in here. You could hit A to fit them all, because I'm going to grab everybody there. What I'm doing is I'm grabbing 45 and 46. Because if you remember, this is a hard consonant, and these two frames are pretty much the exact same frame. And let's just hold down Control and bring them back one frame. Let's see where this last one is here. Yeah, let's take a look.
Dip. Dip. Dip.
Okay, and let's run a preview and check it. I'll just stop it right around. Let's just go to 60 there.
Evildoers, 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 evildoers.
So now you can see it works a little bit better now. The shape isn't that extreme there. We do have a key right here going from one frame. We get that drastic change, but in the course of the mouth movement, it's not quite as noticeable.
Evildoers, 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 evildoers.
Okay. So let's make one last preview of the entire lip sync here, and we'll take a look. Okay, so once we have all the animation just the way we like it for the mouth, we're ready to move on to the eyebrows. Let's take a look at our preview and see.
Evildoers, beware the owl man. Evildoers, beware the owl man. Evildoers, beware the owl man. Evildoers, beware the owl man.
Okay, so there it is. When you're animating the mouth, specifically for lip sync, you really just want to focus on the extremes. It's usually a hard consonant to an open vowel. You don't necessarily want to add the phoneme for every single letter you hear in the word. You just want to focus on how you think the character's lips would move when he would really say the line. Listen to the audio and decide from there. So what we'll be doing in this segment is focusing on the animation of the character's upper part of his head, his eyebrows and his eyes, his lids and his blinks and things like that. So let's take a look. So I'm going to look at mainly the Browse tab and the Eye tab. I'm going to start with the Brows and move them around first, because the eyes are a little bit different. You do want them to coincide with the motion that the character's face is making in terms of his speech, but you also have to throw in an occasional blink and things like that. So let's start with the brows. Now we have a little bit of an expression on his brows already that we started with his just a sort of a generic face here. So let's go back to right where we started to have him start to speak. And again, I'm going to refer to the dope sheet because I want his brows to sort of coincide with what he's saying. So he starts to talk right around 34 or so. He starts to say evil. So let's make a frame, say right around 29 or so, and we'll just make a keyframe. I held down Control-Shift and just dragged out in one of these just to retain this for now. And then what I'm going to have him do is, as he starts to talk, as he's preparing to talk here, right around frame 34 or so, what I'm going to do is, let's go ahead and reset those. Let's have him start to furrow his brow a bit. Let's bring down these stern targets here. So he's getting ready to say evildoers. Okay? And let's move forward a little bit. Okay, so here's the V. Evil. So here I want to, maybe I'll just bring him up a little bit, just to get a little bit of movement in there. But right when he says doers, I want that sort of the brows to kind of pop up a bit. So let's make a keyframe for everything there. And there's the D. So there's two D frames. So what I'm going to do is, let's bring them back down again. You're just getting a little subtle movement in there. And then as it pops up into the word ooh, just right to coincide with that shape there, I'm going to go ahead and pop them up. So let's go. There we go. And let's scrub here. So he kind of pops up into that wide. Okay. And let's come around to where we want him to bring his eyebrows back down. Let's have him hold that for just a few frames there. Okay. So let's go to. Let's have him hold that for 3 frames. Just going to make a keyframe on everything there. And maybe have him come down a little bit. Okay. And let's go a few frames ahead to where he's almost done saying the word. And let's bring him back down a little bit. We're going to have him sort of snap them down. Right when he's about to say that you should beware the owl man. So let's move forward a little bit here. Okay. So let's start by saying 4 frames. Make a keyframe there. Bring them down. I'll just use this one stern one here. Okay. And before we move on, let's just make a quick preview and see what we've done so far here. Let's go 30 to 60. So as we're animating the eyebrows, we kind of want to avoid having them have that sort of floaty look to them. We always want them to sort of have the same punchiness that we were going for in the mouth. So we always want them to sort of be quick moving, not sort of just kind of hovering around. Let's take a look at the preview. Okay. At this stage, we should see still floaty eyebrows since we haven't edited them yet.
Beware the owl man.
Mostly looking at the keys here.
Beware the owl man. Evildoers.
Now it looks like when he says doers, the eyebrows are a bit behind the actual face expression here. So let's take a look again here, and we'll be editing that part.
Evildoers. Beware.
I kind of want it to sort of pop up a bit sooner, I think, and we want to get rid of a little bit of a floaty bump right there. Looks like we have one extra key than we need there. Okay, so let's go take a look. It's right around frame 50. So let's go to frame 50. And let's see where our last key is at 48 here. And then we've got one at 51. And then another at 57. So I think what we want to do is have it sort of pop up sooner and come down quicker. Okay. So let's take frame 57 for starters here. And let's make it the same as 61 here. Or close to it anyway. Let's go down to 61. We have sort of this angry kind of look here. So let's go ahead and do that here. Okay. And let's come back to this frame here. Now where he pops up there, see, we've got 45 to 48. Okay, so let's just edit that a little bit. I'm going to take frame 45 and 48. I'm going to move both of them back one frame. So let's go up into the graph editor here. And I'm just going to go ahead and hold down Shift and select all of them. And I want 48 as well as 45. I'm going to shift both of these back one frame. So Control, just kind of one frame back. Okay. And then let's come back here and look at frame 51. The hold we had on the eyebrows, I think we want that to come down a little bit sooner here. Let's make a quick preview of just that section and see how it looks. And he's about to say the doers. Okay, let's take a look.
Evildoer, evildoers, 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 evildoers.
Okay. All right, now let's go right back to right before his eyebrows come up here. We've got frame 40 to 44. We get a little bit of a bump there. So let's bring 44 up a little bit, like it's on its way up here. Slight anticipation. Okay. Now let's take a look here at frame 74 to 77. First of all, let's fix up this one a little bit. Had a little bit of a weirdness going on in there that we wanted to clean up. And we're just getting some little bit of strange movement in there initially. So. Okay. Okay, let's get another preview here. See where we're at now. Okay. And we'll let a loop here.
Evildoers, beware the owl man. Evildoers, beware the owl man. Evildoers, beware the owl man. Evildoers, beware the owl man.
Okay, let's look right there, between around 95 to 105-ish. Get a little bit of a weird transition there. I think we have a situation here where we have his left brow down and his right one up a little bit, and then it switches. Let's go ahead and try and keep that sort of left down, right up kind of feel. Let's head over to 95 here. Okay.
owl man.
Okay, let's just make a preview of the tail end there.
Where the owl man? 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 Where the owl man?
Okay. So now we've got something working pretty well there. So what we want to do now is focus on his eye blinks and things like that. It's part of the brow and upper eye section here. And what we want to keep in mind here is sort of when he sort of makes his different mouth expressions, how that might affect his eyes there. Okay. So let's head back to right before he's about to start talking here. Okay. Okay, so right before he's about to say his line, we're going to have him blink. So let's come back to right about frame 31, and let's go to his eye tab there. And I'm going to go ahead and create a key on all those frames there. And let's go forward, let's say 3 frames, and let's make him blink. And I held down Control-Shift to make a key for all of them. And I'm going to hold that blink for a second here. Let's see. Let's hold it for 3 frames. Yeah, let's go into 3 frames. Let's have him open his eyes there. Okay, and right before he's about to say doers here. Let's go right to that D. Okay. And what we're going to do here is have him sort of open his eyes, kind of get this wide-eyed thing to correspond with his eyebrow movement. Okay. Yeah, let's bring him back to normal right around here. Maybe one a little wider than the other still. And let's just make a quick preview, see what we've got so far. Again, it's just kind of want to sort of convey what he's thinking. Okay.
Evildoers, 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 evildoers.
Okay. Now let's sort of give him a little bit of a squint when he starts to say beware. And it's right around 77. So let's go to, say, 73. And let's go ahead and make a key. Bring these down a little bit here. And let's go up to 77. And let's start to squint his eyes a little bit here. And we're going to hold that squint. Let's go to about 82 here. And we'll keep the squint, but we'll just lower it a little bit. And when it says the A, let's go ahead and bring them down and widen them a little bit again. Maybe not so much, that much. There we go. Okay. And let's go a few frames ahead and add another blink in there. Okay. And then 1, 2, 3 frames or so. Open them back up here. There we go.
Ow. Ow.
Okay, and let's add one last blink there. Let's go here, make a keyframe. And let's go 1, 2, 3. Blink. And 1, 2, 3. Let's open them back up. A little bit wide. Maybe a little bit of squint on this one. Yeah, let's make a quick preview just to see what we've got here. Now, a lot of times in character animation, the eyes are one of the most important elements. It's really the focus of the character, and you want to make them look just right. Through the course of animating the eyeballs, you also want to take into consideration the blinking and the wideness and things like that to really convey the life of the character. Okay, so let's take a look at our preview here.
Evildoers, beware the owl man. 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 Evildoers, beware.
And let's go ahead and take a look at
evildoer
right there. Now I think through the course of looking at the animation here, we probably even push that even further.
Evildoers.
Let's see how it looks when we break that into really wide eyes. Give them a little bit of extra life here. Let's go ahead and crank both these up, and let's see if we can go beyond 100%. Actually, we should make the left wider, since we've got a wider eyebrow there. And let's see how it is. And then let's go back to this one here. Let's push them there too. And again, let's make another preview here. And you'll find that in cleanup, you might often decide that the eyes need either more life or a little more subtlety. It's all about conveying the emotions of the character, and generally you can sort of see a lot in the character's eyes. If you were to even just cover up the mouth area and sort of just focus on the eyes, in most cases you can tell what the character's thinking or how he's feeling just by looking at the expression of his eyes and his eyebrows. So let's take a look.
Evildoers, beware the owl man. Evildoers, beware the owl man. Evildoers, beware the owl man.
And that gives a little more life to him.
Beware the owl man. Evildoers, beware the owl man. Evildoers, beware the owl man.
And there you go. Okay, now we've got it to a point where we're pretty happy with it. So what I want to do is save out the file so I can attach it to the model in other scenes. So in the endomorph panel here, let's just hit this save button here. And it's going to bring us right to our content directory here. And let's go into settings. And let's just go ahead and make a folder in here. And I'll call it Morph Mixer. And let's just call this Owlman line. And I'll call it 01 in case I need to update it later. Now I can apply the same set of keys on all of these endomorphs to the character in other scenes, the scene where he's animated. So let's go ahead and take a last look here. And we'll render a preview. Okay, so now there's two schools of thought on facial animation. Typically what you want to do is animate the character and get all of his key poses and attitudes in, and then add the facial animation after cleanup. Another methodology is to do what we've done here, which is to sort of look straight on at the character, get all the lip sync down right, and then apply that animation to the character in the scene. And then you could look through the camera and sort of tweak as needed to always play towards the camera. Let's see how it came out. And we'll let it loop so the audio catches up there.
Beware the owl man. Evildoers, Beware the owl man.
And there we have it.
Evildoers.
And it looks pretty good. You can
Beware
always
the
continue to
owl
tweak
man.
it further.
Evildoers.
And depending on how close or far from the
Beware the
character the
owl
camera is going to be, you may need to.
Evildoers. Beware the owl man. Evildoers. Beware the owl man.
Okay, so there it is. And facial animation is a critical part to the animated scene. It conveys the character's personality, emotions, and attitudes, and oftentimes is the icing on the cake for the animated scene, and breathing life into your animated actors. Until next time, I'm Todd Grimes, and thanks for joining me.